Hello, everybody. We learn of the mitzvah of a melech for Am Yisrael. Ki tavo el haaretz asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach v'lishtavi yashavta ba. When you come to the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you, and you conquer it and settle it, v'amarta, and you will say, Asima alai melech kechol hagoyim asher sevivotai. I will place upon myself a sovereign, a king, as the nations around me do. Som tasim alecha melech, you shall place upon yourselves a king. The question that arises comes actually from the book of Shmuel. When Am Yisrael wanted to appoint a king, Shmuel got very upset at them. This is somewhat puzzling in light of the mitzvah in our parsha. And they said there as well, we wish to have a king like all the other nations. In order to attempt to see various answers to this question, we need to delve into a machloket in Masechet Sanhedrin. There the Gemara relates the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that Shalosh mitzvot nitztavu Yisrael b'chnisatan la'aretz. There were three mitzvahs that Am Yisrael were commanded to observe upon their entry into Eretz Yisrael. And the first that is listed is laha'amid lahem melech, to place upon themselves a king. And this would apparently be based on our pasuk, Som tasim, place, you shall surely place, alecha, upon yourselves, melech. So Rav Yehuda views this as an actual mitzvah that there be a sovereign king. Rav Nahoroi Omer, however, Rav Nahoroi disagrees, and he says, Lo ne'emra parsha zu ela keneged tar omatan. The whole reason for this parsha is because Beruach HaKodesh it was known that in the future, i.e. in the time of Shmuel Hanavi, the Jewish people would want a king, and they would really want it for improper purposes. Shene'emar v'amarta asima alai melech. You will say, I wish to place upon myself a king. In light of this machloket, with Rav Nahoroi disputing Rav Yehuda said it's a mitzvah to have a king. Here we see Rav Nahorai's opinion that the Torah mentions the possibility of having a king if that's what the people in the future are destined to want. So the first answer to our question might be, as Rav Nahoroi says, that the Torah mentions kechol hagoyim. In other words, the people wanted to mimic the idolatrous ways of their neighbors and therefore wanted such a king to rule over them. And thus, it's understandable if that was their motivation, why Shmuel would have been upset with them. The question remains, okay, that's according to Rav Nahoroi. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, that having a king is actually a mitzvah, then why did Shmuel get upset at them? So the Gemara goes on to bring the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer b'Rabbi Yossi, in which he says that the Zekenim Shebadar, the learned elders of Shmuel's generation, Shahalu Kahogen, they asked for a king with the right motivation, someone who would lead them in Yiras Shamayim. Tana lanu melech lishoftenu. They wanted a king who would judge them according to Torah laws, and that's the command of the Torah. But the Amei Haaretz, the simple folk, they had other inclinations. And that was, they wanted simply to be like all the other nations, and that's what upset Shmuel. So yes, it could be that according to Rav Yehuda, Shmuel was upset not at those who were properly motivated in asking for a king to fulfill the mitzvah, but for those who actually wanted a king for all of the wrong reasons. However, the truth is that in the words of what's attributed to the Zikanim, the learned, well-motivated ones, there too it basically says as well, Kechol Hagoyim. According to simple pshat of the pasuk, if we were to read it in Shmuel, it was not a proper request even on the part of the Zikanim. But yet, on the other hand, we need to ask, but the Torah itself mentions Kechol Hagoyim. In order to offer yet another approach, we need to see the words of the Netziv that are highly relevant to our day and age. The Netziv raises a question. If, according to Rav Yehuda, having a king is an actual mitzvah, so who cares if the people will say we want a king or they won't say we want the king? The Torah should simply say, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, conquer and settle it. Som tasim alecha melech. What's this whole introduction via Marta? And you will say, I want a king. Well, you should have a king. If it's a mitzvah, just pose it as a mitzvah. This is what I want you to do when you're in Eretz Yisrael. And so the Netziv answers this question by pointing out that actually there is and there isn't a mitzvah to have a king. There's a mitzvah as follows. Not to have a king per se, but rather that there should be a governing authority, an orderly society. And that's what the Torah meant when it says that you will say, Asima alai melech kechol hagoyim. Not literally a king, but I want an orderly governing being, entity, just like all the other civilized nations that are around me have. And says the Netziv, and this is relevant to our day as well, for some countries, a monarchy is a system that works best. For others, it might be a republic. The Torah doesn't favor monarchy over republic or any other form of governing authority. The Torah favors that there should be a governing authority. And therefore, in a sense, there's no mitzvah to appoint a king, but there is a mitzvah to have an authority. For as we learn in Pirkei Avos, without it, ish et re'ehu chayim b'la'o. There would be total chaos in society otherwise. But this idea of being like the nations of the world applies only to the concept of there being a governing authority, but not to the concept of the mishpatim, of the dinim that govern said country, because the mishpatim of the goyim are not our way of justice and of law. We have a unique system of Jewish law. Only the laws of the Torah guide us. And therefore, the Torah, in positing that there's a mitzvah to have a governing authority, or in the actual literal word, som tasim alecha melech, the whole purpose is to have governing, but not to have a system of justice that is like the neighboring countries. But what the people asked from Shmuel was something totally different. Listen carefully to their words. Sima lanu melech, place upon us a king, lishaftenu, that he should judge us, kechol hagoyim, with the same laws of all the other nations. That's not what the Torah says. The Torah simply commands that when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you will say, Asima alai melech kechol hagoyim. We want a governing authority like the other civilized countries have. It doesn't say L'shoftenu kechol hagoyim. So while the idea of government might be shared in all opinions, there is a question as to how the government enforces what type of law. The Jewish people are unique and certainly not kechol hagoyim. Shabbat Shalom.